spirit and truth. Those who say that they know him must walk as he walked. Those who worship the Lord worship in spirit and truth. Those who say that they know him must walk as he walked. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light. If we say that we know him, but we don't keep his word, then we walk in the darkness, and the truth's not in us. If we walk in the light, we will have fellowship sweet, and the blood of Jesus will cleanse us from sin. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light. He is the way and the truth, and in him is the life. If we obey his word, then we walk in the light.
Well, good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're doing great this fine Christmas Eve morning, and ready for Christmas as much as you can be. We're still getting ready. I mean, I had a friend that, hear that coffee maker in the background there? Yes. I had a friend that always did his Christmas shopping on Christmas Eve day. Very effective, successful pastor, well-respected pastor, PhD, all that stuff. But yet he thought it was fun to wait. And they didn't go crazy like, okay, what's everybody want? It's just, he went out and found things that he thought his kids would enjoy, his wife would enjoy, and wasn't as quite wrapped up with, they have to have this or this or this. And just had a lot of fun with it. It's kind of fun watching him. Of course, we always had a Christmas Eve service, so he had to kind of crowd that in before Christmas Eve service, and it was just kind of interesting. I asked him, so Bill, how'd it go? And I had a good time. Just he's retiring this year. He was a fantastic pastor to work with, and a great example in many ways. But I don't know if you're done or not. We were going to do some yesterday. Wendy's worked on some, but it's cookie making day today, and be making some cookies. And I have to also say this. I missed it yesterday. I wasn't on top of it. There's enough stuff on Facebook and social media and emails and stuff that I don't always get to see see everything. And I noticed late last night that yesterday was somebody else's birthday, and we missed it. And we didn't say happy birthday. We didn't sing happy birthday. We didn't acknowledge happy birthday because, frankly, I didn't realize it was happy birthday. So it will be a belated birthday to Donna. It was Donna's birthday yesterday, getting now into her teenage years. And so we want to wish a very, very, very happy belated birthday to our own dear Donna Hopkins this morning. And good morning and happy birthday to you, Donna. And Stephanie, glad to have you back among us, and recovering from things, feeling better, and glad you're feeling better, and glad to have you back with us. And Walter down there, good morning to you in Lancaster. So good morning to you as well. Today is Christmas Eve day, and we'll be celebrating tonight. Lord willing, there's not like a blizzard or something that comes through. I have not even checked the weather forecast to see what that might look like, but we will be having a Christmas Eve service tonight, and hopefully you will be able to join us either in person or online, and we'll be able to enjoy it with us. I don't know what to expect tonight. I mean, COVID numbers are up a little bit, and we do encourage, maybe consider wearing a mask if you're going to come. I would encourage that. I'll probably be wearing one around people that are coming and going, and I know it's just the way it is, and get used to just navigating it the best that we can. I ran into somebody from our town yesterday and just said, well, you kind of have to roll with it. That's what we do, and so that is what we'll do here as well. And reminder, Sunday, our Christmas Carol service that we were going to do Wednesday night, we postponed due to the rain, freezing rain, ice, 32, 33 degree temperatures, and just thought it would be prudent for us to do so. That will take place on Sunday morning. I will be cooking a breakfast. It isn't going to quite accomplish the same purpose as I had hoped that it would. Maybe it will. Maybe it'll do even better. God knows what God is doing, so I'll just trust God with this. My hope was that people would sit and get to know other people, and we'd mix it up a little bit, but I'm still going to force my hand in that, and it might be unpopular over the next several months. We just need to be better connected within the body of Christ here at Veracity Chapel. So going to do some things to try to massage that. But there will be sausage. There will be hot sausage. There will be mild sausage. There will be breakfast sausage. There will be, I don't know. I think if I remember correctly, there are like 4 different varieties of breakfast sausage. There will be keto pancakes, and there will be regular pancakes. I'm not planning to cook eggs and a whole bunch of other things. It's pancakes, it's sausage. It's a pancake and sausage breakfast. That's what it is. And if you are in the area, we would love to have you stop on by and come at 9 o'clock and plan to get to know some people. That's really what we'd like to see happen during that breakfast. And we'll try to set the tables up so there's a little bit of spacing. Yet if everybody shows up or lots of people show up, I mean, that can be problematic. But anyway, we're just going to roll with it and have fun and have joy and have faith, have trust in the Lord. And in case you're wondering, no, these are not my PJs. PJ does not have red and black flannel PJs, okay? I wear blue flannel PJs. Just want everybody to know, in case you're wondering, is he sitting there in his flannel pajamas? No, I am not. This is one of a flannel that my daughter got that really didn't fit a year ago and fits pretty well right now. So, anyway, hopefully you're dressing up in your in your flannels and your Christmas garb, and I would love to see some pictures on Facebook of some of you dressed up in your Christmas finest. So, and Donna, clarifying, 17 to be exact. So we're celebrating with Donna at her 17th birthday. Wink, wink. Okay, and so we celebrate with you, Donna, today, and we are going to be in the second chapter of the book of Matthew today. We're going to look at the Magi. Some call them the Magi. I've always called them the Magi, and I will continue to call them the Magi. In Matthew chapter 2, there is much about Matthew chapter 2. Now, this actually, what we're reading today would actually have taken place within the first few years. This oftentimes you see the nativity sets, and it will have shepherds and angels and wise guys, wise men, the Magi. You'll see camels and sheep and other animals, donkeys and things, perhaps, at a nativity set. The Magi really didn't fit that narrative. Just for your record, if I were to set up a nativity set, would I include the Magi? Maybe, just because it looks nice, but it's inaccurate. If you were a never Christmas person, I shouldn't do that because it's like a never Trump thing. And anyway, if you're a person that doesn't practice celebrate Christmas because you think Jesus was born in March or September, because we really don't know, and probably one of those two is much more likely than December. I don't know what I was going to say. You're missing out maybe a little bit on just the chance to celebrate Jesus and to focus on Jesus. And if you're one of those that were looking for the details and go, aha, see, you're inaccurate again. Well, we're not going to be inaccurate. These wise men were people who came along, again, within the first few years. And there's reason in the text that we will see why we believe the wise men came later. Again, my nativity set, I wouldn't include the wise men. Yes, it looks festive and it fills it out and it gives more breadth and depth to it and all. However, the fact of the matter is, theologically, historically, maybe not theologically, unless you want to say, well, because Scripture says, from that vantage point, biblically, theologically, historically, the wise men did not fit the scene at the stable. So Matthew chapter 2, and hey, as I'm in here this morning and leading us through this passage, I want to encourage you, if you have any special festive Christmas things that you'll be doing, in the comments, just to say, hey, this is what we're doing. We still don't have figured out what we're doing. I mean, we know that on Sunday afternoon at 1:00, our daughter and son-in-law are going to come over. We know that. We know that tonight we'll have a Christmas Eve service at 7. We know that we will probably watch the Muppet Christmas Carol after that, because that's tradition. And tomorrow we'll probably have breakfast. I will practice my breakfast skills tomorrow, and then we'll open some gifts. And we're thinking maybe we need to see if there are people who need to have an invitation over to visit and play games, and maybe be distracted from some of the sadness in their life, and we're very open to that. So we're trying to think through what that will look like and see what the needs are. We're kind of delinquent in that because we didn't know what our son and daughter-in-law wanted to do until just yesterday. So anyway, Matthew chapter 2. Before I read it, I am going to step away from my desk because I need to grab that cup of coffee that is over there, and we will then read this passage together, Matthew chapter 2. Grab your Bible, follow along, as we read about the wise men. If I were polished and professional, I wouldn't be doing what I just did, going and getting my next cup of coffee. I would be sitting there reading, but I'm just down-to-earth, simple country boy is what I am, and I needed my coffee. Matthew 2, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born, King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them where the Christ was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will be the shepherd of my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and make a careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. Now, someone was talking to me the other day about the translation that they read in verse 12 when it says they returned to their country another way. And that person was saying that, I'm kind of reading into that they left as changed people. I really don't think the text is saying that. I really do think that it is saying that they returned literally another route. Now, I do think, I would be in agreement that they were likely changed people as a result of having seen Jesus. I think that they probably were different. I think that who knows how God met with them in their encounter with Mary and Joseph and the toddler Jesus. They were likely different as a result. I guess I've repeated that 4 or 5 or 15 times now. But I do think the text bears out that they returned a different route. They didn't go back to Herod as Herod had asked, as actually Herod had kind of commanded or demanded that they would do. They left town. They went back. Now, what it says, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born, King of the Jews? We saw his star in the east and have come to worship him." Now, this was a significant star. Now, it may not have been as significant as what all of our Christmas cards have on them. This bright, incredibly bright, huge star with the light beams coming down. The Magi were star readers. They were astronomers. They were astrologers. They were likely from the land of Persia, which would be, like modern day Iran, Iraq, that area. They likely were descendants from the astrologers that were alive during the days of Daniel, who was the chief among the wise men of Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom of Babylon in those days. He was made the head dream interpreter, the head of the astrologers and astronomers. Now, he probably didn't practice the astrology the way that the other wise men of Persia did, but we are quite sure that he likely communicated to those enchanters and astrologers and people that served in that capacity in the kingdoms of that day, most likely communicated to them the visions that God had given him, the prophecies that God had given to him, and as well other prophecies, other biblical truth that he knew. He was likely communicating that to the people in that were around him, and so they had been informed. They had been instructed what to be looking for in this unique star, and what it would point to, and where it would lead, and that this Savior would be born, this King, this child would be born in Bethlehem. And so, and we know this because they are quoting in Matthew. Well, they're not quoting. It is now the chief priests and teachers of the law asking, where is the Christ to be born? And in verse 5, they as well, the chief priests, we're talking about the Jewish priests, the teachers of the Torah, they are saying, this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come one who will be a shepherd of my people Israel. And so even the chief priests knew this, and yet it wasn't the chief priest who went. It was shepherds who went a few years earlier, and now it is these magi coming from the region of Persia. You think the East, you're thinking, well, they Chinese or something? No, they're Persian wise men who traveled. They noted something unique about the stars, and this one unique star that shined more brightly than typical. And they, as Walter says, they studied the Old Testament writings. They followed them, or at least they studied them and knew about them minimally. They knew what they had been taught through Daniel. And so this star is unique. We're going to follow this star. And it seems as though once they arrived in the region, that God allowed that star to continue to guide them, because it says in verse 9, after they heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east, while they were still in the east, several hundred miles away. It says the star they'd seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. Now, this was most likely a house. You know, we always see the star over the stable, but it is more likely that it's the star, that the star is over a house, because this is now some few years later, that these, anywhere from a year to 2 years later, we don't know exactly. Some will say, well, this was 2 years later. Why? Well, because King Herod had all the children, all the boy children who were 2 years old and younger killed off. It doesn't mean that this was 2 years later. It's just he went, you know what? I'll get rid of all the male children that were born over the last 2 years, and that should probably eliminate this quote, King of the Jews. That's what was going on. And so Stephanie is asking a very good question, and I can tell you I do not know the answer to that question. So let's see if we can find the answer. How long to travel? I'm going to put from Babylon to Bethlehem. By foot. Well, this is giving me. Hold on, I'm trying to find the answer to that. Person is asking a question. You know, how long? And go from Baghdad to Jerusalem, and they didn't go to Jerusalem, they went to Bethlehem. They're saying, this person is saying, you know, maybe 6 to 9 months, because it wasn't just like one of them that was going. It was they had a whole entourage. They had to set affairs in order back in where they were coming from. It doesn't specify exactly where they were coming from, but because of their background, these wise men, these magi, were likely coming from a royal area in that region, from a controlling city in that region, and coming to Jerusalem, coming to Bethlehem, 6 to 9 months with the entourage. And this is just a quick look because I do not know the answer to that immediately. I'm just trying to see. The distance is about 5,400 miles. That's how long the distance is, 5448.1 exactly, from Babylon to Bethlehem. So it's, over 5,000 miles that they're traveling. And, they're traveling by donkey, or they're traveling by camel, they're traveling by foot. They have an entourage with them. They have to stop and have coffee and things along the way. They have to stop at their roadside rest stops and take breaks and all. But we know that they're traveling by foot that far. I'm looking up one other. Place. To see if I can find other answers. Okay, yeah, I'm not finding good. You could research that a little bit more. Maybe somebody else will look at that. But I mean, yeah, there was planning, there was money, because we think that there were 3 wise men. We don't know that there were 3 wise men. We don't know that. You say, well, yes, we do, because they presented 3 gifts. It doesn't even necessarily say that they presented just 3 gifts, but they presented 3 types of gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And so out of that, we've usually conjectured that there were 3 wise men. The fact of the matter is there may have been more than 3, and there were likely more than 3 people, because the wise men probably brought other people in their entourage with them. So, and it's interesting that Herod didn't just simply follow them and whatnot. He just trusted that they would come back. Well, you're the Herod. Of course, we're going to listen to what you tell us, that they would come back and inform Herod of where Jesus was. Now, out of this, I want to just draw out a few things. It says in verse 7, Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star appeared. The first time the star appeared. Did it appear more than once? It's possible it appeared more than once. It likely did. I mean, the sky changes. The movement of the earth changes the location of the stars for us, both on a given day as well as through the given seasons. So there were likely a few appearances of the star. One on this particular night, because God wanted to make sure that they made it to the exact location where Jesus was. So he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go make careful search for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I may go and worship him. That was not at all his intent. It says, after they heard the king, they went in their way. The star they'd seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. I mean, you talk about divine navigation. This is divine navigation, God directing them exactly to where they are supposed to go. And verse 10 says, when they saw the star, they went ho-hum, gave a few gifts, and headed out. Right? Verse 10, see it there? When they saw the star, when they saw the child, they were ho-hum, gave a few gifts, and headed out. No, it says when they saw the star, again, the star reappearing, directing their course. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed, so excited. I mean, think about the thrill I mean, it would be like when the aurora borealis is visible here in Maine, and sometimes it's like you have to be out in Bar Harbor or up in the county or something like that to see the aurora borealis. I have never seen it, but it's like people would be so excited. When we were in Alaska, was it 7 years ago? We didn't see the aurora borealis, but it was visible in Maine that particular week, a couple nights, and we didn't get to see it either way. But we get excited to see the aurora borealis. I have military friends who live up in Alaska now, and they regularly post pictures on Facebook about the aurora borealis and how beautiful it is, and so how excited we would be. And to think about these wise men, again in verse 10, Matthew chapter 2, they saw the star, they were overjoyed. It says, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary. They bowed down and worshiped him. And they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. Just thinking of the gifts that were given to Jesus. So, out of that, I lost my chat feature here. So I have to see if it will come back. I just typed hello to Fran and it disappeared. Oh dear. I've got to go through the whole rigmarole to get verified and logged back in. VERACITY26 exclamation point. I think that's it. Sorry, folks, because I was wanting to chat with you all, and my I lost the chat feature. Okay. I will try this one more time. Mountains or hills? This isn't why you tune in. I know that, but I can't communicate with you. Okay. Now I don't remember. Talking about the wise people, and I guess I'm just going to continue on and not be able to see your comments here, because it's not taking for me here for some reason. Gifts. I mean, this always forces for us the question: what about us? What do we bring? And I know people, and I'm kind of convicted to say this in a negative way. That I know people that say, I will not give more value in gifts to other people than what I give to the Lord. There are churches, some churches that practice Christ birthday offering, and so they take an extra offering. Okay, I see what that's supposed to be. And in taking the extra offering, it's a way of celebrating Jesus. I know people that they have birthday cake to celebrate Jesus and his birth. And some people think that that's so childish. We don't need to do something like that. And yet, okay. And yet those same people who are kind of downers about having cake. They don't do anything else to acknowledge the birth of Christ and to worship Christ. So they're the ones that miss out, in my opinion. Sorry, folks. It's just not. There. I'm back with you. And in the chat, although I've lost things that were said, it's waiting for new messages. So, but the gifts. Let me get back into the text here instead of being distracted. I enjoy interacting with you, and my chat feature closed out for some reason. Maybe we had a blip in the internet that I wasn't aware of. But they brought the gifts. What do we bring? I mean, this is Christmas Eve night tonight. And I mean, a question is, and we'll have our joy bucket out there for people to make it, to give if they want to give. We don't push hard on that in this particular church. And maybe we should. Maybe we should make more of that and challenge people. You know, some places call it year-end giving. What about Christ's birthday offering? The idea of giving an offering, an extra offering to Jesus at his birthday for the ministry. So people say, well, why won't I do that? Jesus isn't alive. Well, yes, he is. He's alive. He is seated at the right hand of the Father. He has commissioned the church. He has commissioned us to continue his ministry. And certainly it takes money to operate a church. It takes money to, even if we didn't have this building, if I wanted to do what I do full time, that takes money. And we want to expand ministry. We want to expand mission. We support missionaries. We support things like the Neighborhood House, Camp Fair Haven. We support ministries in Romania. We support ministries in various other places, in Mexico, with New Tribes Missions. And I'm kind of just giving some examples here of some of the various places that we do support other ministries. And that's what your giving goes to do with your regular giving. But here to see them coming, they're bowing down, they're worshiping, they're presenting gifts, you know, and we don't push for people to have to bow down. We don't push for people to necessarily bring the extra gifts. They did this on their own. I mean, when an outside entity is forcing it upon you, I mean, that may not truly be worship. I can encourage it. I can suggest it. And I would say even tonight, what will our posture be as we come together tonight or Sunday morning? Again, Sunday morning, I've already said it earlier, will be a Christmas carol service. And lots of Christmas carols, breakfast before that, but to be enjoying gold and incense and myrrh, and enjoying gold, incense, and myrrh, to be enjoying worship and thinking about how we bring gifts representative of gold and incense and myrrh. I'm really not with it this morning. My technology has kind of thrown me off rhythm here a little bit. To worship, to bow down, to give the gift. And I've shared this before. I had some friends that said they would not have any single larger bill than what their monthly giving to the Lord was. Now you think about having, and these were not people that were like high-end earners by any stretch of imagination, but they determined that that was their conviction. So even their mortgage, they even gave more than their mortgage every month. If you can imagine that. That was their conviction that they would give to the Lord, and God has been good to them for all these years. And God honored that commitment and that decision that they made, that conviction that they followed in their giving. They're bringing gold, incense, myrrh, valuable gifts, and there's more that we could learn about the types of gifts. They are gifts of, interestingly, they are gifts of royalty. You think of gold, it's a rich type of gift. The incense that would be burned. Myrrh, The incense and myrrh were often used at times of funerals or times of burials to whether to mask some of the aroma of death. So the fact that they brought incense and myrrh would be applied to the body of Jesus at his burial. When they buried him. And so even the gifts given have somewhat of a prophetical nature to them in pointing out even how Jesus would die. Now, we don't know that the wise men knew that. These were gifts of royalty. These were gifts of high value that they brought. And what we do know is they simply worshiped Jesus. Verse 12 goes on and says, having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. We've kind of talked about that earlier. And the passage continues on and says, when they had gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. Get up, he said, take the child and his mother and escape to Egypt. Stay there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to kill him. So he got up, took the child and his mother during the night, and left for Egypt, where they stayed until the death of Herod. And so was fulfilled what the Lord said through the prophet, out of Egypt I called my son. Now, I'm going to bring up for us the ESV version. That prophecy is coming from Hosea chapter 1 and verse 11. So he's born in Bethlehem, but then comes out of Egypt. Some would say, well, aren't these conflicting prophecies? One says Bethlehem, the other says Egypt. But then when you put these two things together, you realize Jesus is born in Bethlehem. He would be raised in Nazareth, and yet another thing that gets conflicted in some people's minds. And then, well, what about Egypt? Isn't this talking about three different things? And isn't this conflicting? No, it is born in Bethlehem, went to Egypt, took the flight to Egypt, not a literal flight, mind you, but they left, they escaped to Egypt so that Jesus' life would be preserved. When they returned, Jesus would grow up in Nazareth. And so all of the prophecies, those three prophecies about the birth, the early childhood of Jesus, and where he was raised, all come true, all come to fruition. And so the flight to Egypt, and then we read the horrific thing. I mean, we tend to think about the good things that happen. We think about the angels. We think about the star. We think about the sheep. We think about the manger. We think about the magi and the gifts and all these different things. But the birth of Christ also brought something with it that was very horrific, and which we'll read about now in Matthew chapter 2, verse 16. It says, then Herod, when he saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, became furious, and he sent and killed all the male children in Bethlehem and in all that region who were 2 years old or under. Now notice, it's male children. It's in Bethlehem and the surrounding region who were 2 years old and under, according to the time that he ascertained from the wise men. So, somewhere within that 2-year period. Then was fulfilled what was spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, weeping and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be comforted because they are no more. Now, Rachel, we're not talking about like just one woman. He's not singling out one woman and saying Rachel, but Rachel was the mother of many of the children born to Jacob. Is that right? Isaac and Rebecca, Rachel and Leah and Jacob. Yeah, making sure I have my people right here. So Rachel was the wife of Jacob. And so Rachel being representative of Israel, that name Rachel, the mother figure of all the children of Israel. So Israel weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. This prophecy coming out of Jeremiah chapter 31 and verse 15. We see other references here, Genesis chapter 42, Genesis verse 13, Genesis 42, verse 36, Lamentations chapter 5 and verse 7. But all the weeping, all the crying. Now, we tend to think, oh, there were hundreds and hundreds of children that were killed. Well, some of the scholars think that there were likely in the area, given the size of the population, given that it was only the male children, there were something like maybe 50 children that were killed. And yet, that is horrific. That is absolutely horrific that 50 children would be killed, 50 male children in that age range, all killed because Herod was looking for Jesus. So when you think of Christmas cards, I mean, we see the shepherds and the stable and the star. We might see the wise men and the gifts and the camels and all those things. I mean, never have I seen a Christmas card with the death of the innocent. And yet that would be an entirely appropriate Christmas card because that is part of the Christmas narrative that, we focus on the good stuff, but Jesus brought pain. The birth of Jesus not only brought, the wonder of salvation, but it brought heartache to all of these mothers. And sometimes religion brings heartache to people. Sometimes truth brings heartache to people. In this instance, we think, well, where is God? Why didn't God show up and prevent this? Because it's part of the narrative. It's part of the fulfillment of prophecy. It's part of what had to happen to fulfill what said would happen, what was said would happen. And so we see even the heartache of Christmas time. And, for some of you, you're going to have beautiful Christmas times, and you're going to have all your family and friends, and you're going to have lots of food, way too much frosting. Now I'm thinking of like sticky rolls with like walnuts on them. That sounds so good. You're going to have all of that. Yet there are other people who will be extremely lonely here at Christmas time, people who've lost their husband, people who've lost a wife, people who've lost a sister, people who've lost a mother. Lots of sadness, people who are alone, people who don't have much wherewithal, all of those things. And so there is also heartache at Christmas. So while we celebrate at Christmas, may we also remember the heartache of Christmas. There are people who grew up in situations, who are now adults, where Christmas and the holidays were hard things. And in my household, for my spouse, I mean, Christmas wasn't always made to be a great thing. And so as we have learned over 33, 34 years being together, that especially since we've been in Maine, I really had to learn to try to focus on how to do everything I can to make sure that the holidays do not go awry for my wife. Sometimes they will go awry, and you know what awry means, off the tracks. And I want it to be a good time for her. I don't want her discouraged and depressed and thinking of the hurts of childhood. I want her to think about the joys of our family. And so for some of us, there's extra work that we have to do during the holidays. For all the good stuff that we read about in the Christmas narrative, there is also fear. There is suspense. There is decimation of children. There is the heartache of parents, all which is also part of the gospel narrative. And you know, some would want to teach that the gospel only brings good things. Well, I think ultimately, yes, that is true, but I think the gospel sometimes also brings with it hard things, difficult things, challenging things. And you know, we just want to talk about the good stuff. We'll get all the good stuff and the promises of God and the goodness of God and so on and so forth. And yet the reality is The gospel calls us to deny ourselves. The gospel calls us to think of the needs of others. The gospel calls us to put Christ first in everything. And yet often we want to put many other things, or we maybe don't want to, but we do put many other things first. The gospel has a hard call to it. And we have to face that reality as a part of the gospel message. Just think of the heartache and the pain. And as you get into today and tomorrow and Sunday, maybe have your antenna up a little bit for people who may be discouraged, who may have a need, who may need a phone call, who may need a hug, who may need invited to a home to have seafood chowder or beef brisket or fried chicken or meatloaf or turkey or ham or whatever it is that you're having. I want to encourage us to be thoughtful in that way and to meet the needs of other people. Now, I'm going to finish this chapter out. It says this. It says, "But when Herod died, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt." So now this is, some years later. Maybe this is 4 years later. It says, "Rise, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." I mean, this is very, very specific, clear, word-for-word message given by an angel of the Lord in a dream to Joseph. So, here is some biblical substantiation that sometimes God will give us the things word for word. And I would say, in my experience, this is more the exception than the rule, that God gives us the word-for-word things. But some people perhaps do have that encounter with God, where God does give them more frequently the word-for-word, this is what you're supposed to do. We looked at that earlier this week. It says, "He rose, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning over Judah in the place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there, and being warned in a dream, he withdrew to the region of Galilee. He went and lived in the city of Nazareth, and so what was spoken by the prophets might be fulfilled, that he would be called a Nazarene." Now, again, some will look at that and would say, see, inconsistencies in the Bible. Is he from Bethlehem? Is he from Egypt? Is he from Nazareth? But when you understand the flow of things, you see it's all three. He was born in Bethlehem. He had his early years in Egypt, and then he ended up being raised in Nazareth. All three things are true. There is no conflict here at all. The fulfillment of prophecy taking place in the life of Jesus. Some over 300 prophecies will be fulfilled, and there are others yet to be fulfilled about the life of Christ, and the coming again of Christ, the end times, the tribulation period, all those things yet to be fulfilled, and we look forward to those days. Well, friends, I know we had a little bit of a rocky middle there as I had some technological glitches, but hopefully you've been encouraged and inspired to worship. Hopefully you've been encouraged and inspired to think about others who suffer grief during the holidays, how to pray for them, maybe send them a text or a Facebook message or a messenger message, or say, hey, can I meet you and take you to breakfast, or can I buy you lunch, or just to be aware of people around us that, I'm not saying we have to go and meet everybody's needs, but just if each of us would minister to just one person that is discouraged and downcast at Christmas, it would lighten the load and be a blessing to other people. Well, friends, that is it. That is some of our Christmas narrative that we've covered this week, looking at these chapters 1 and 2 of Matthew, chapters 1 and 2 in the book of Luke. Didn't cover all of it, but hopefully we brought some things to light that would be of encouragement to you, that will cause you to want to worship Jesus more fully, as well as be more cognizant of the gospel message that we have to share with other people. Well, friends, I wish you God's blessings today. Again, tonight, worship at 7 o'clock. Encourage you to come on out. We have gift bags for folks. And again, Sunday morning, 9 o'clock breakfast, 10 o'clock worship. And tomorrow is Christmas. So I just want to tell all of you, my wonderful friends and family in Christ, Merry Christmas. May you experience all God's blessings during these days. I will see you tonight, and if not tonight, then I will see you either over the weekend or next week. Have a great day, everyone.